It was interesting because I've been strong, and I think I've been strong because I think watching reality TV, one of the most amazing things is obviously, especially Love is Blind is quite interesting, and shout out to yourself and Jarette's journey. But I was telling the audience, like, I don't want anyone, and it's happened again this season as well with Bliss and Zach, and I've said the same thing, which is I don't like people choosing people second. Like I don't like it because
But you
because
gotta
people
you have to understand it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen in an experiment.
Not
like
on my
that.
watch.
And granted, I will say that like I also had a second choice, and I figured mine out like a day before Jarette did too. And so that's what I'm saying. It could have very well been the other way around. With an experiment like that, where you're dating 15 other people, it's an experiment. It's gonna happen. It's how you handle it. But this is why I think Zach and Bliss are gonna be okay, because Zach seems like he has better character than Jarette. I think they're gonna be fine. That's just my opinion. And plus, I met them in person.
I think they've got great chemistry. I don't like it. I think they've got great chemistry. But I'm gonna say this. Okay, so for instance, what you just said, right? You had a second choice, right? Yeah. But the reality is, you made a choice at the end. You still had a first choice. You know what I mean? True. No matter how close second is to first is always first, right? So for me, whenever someone's second, right, it's never good, because especially for us as men, when we're choosing, for men especially, when we're choosing somebody, like first and second is like, maybe for women it might be slightly different. Maybe you got a bit more grace when it comes to women choosing their first and second, because we all really know that women sometimes as well grow in their attraction. Sometimes they're telling me all this stuff that women do, right? But for us as men, it's very, you know what I mean? So if you're number one, you're number one. Number two, I am hard pressed to find any man or any woman tell me a story where they said, I knew I was second, and yeah, we've been together for 50 years. Like, it's hard pressed. Yeah, because men oftentimes don't necessarily do that. So, you know, that's why I was like so hard on it. Like, yo, he's crying in a towel. He wanted Mallory. Okay. You didn't get to see that until later, innit? Yeah,
I didn't see that. Also, I had a conversation with Mal in the pods that they didn't air, but I talked to Mal. I was like, Mal, please, can you just tell me like the degree of upset he was? Because I just want to know if this man was like boo-hooing, like, I don't have time to be dealing with that. And she's like, no, I mean, he was just like he was upset, yeah, but it wasn't that bad. And then when I saw it and I saw this man like threw a full tantrum, I was like,
he threw a full tantrum.
I was like, are you kidding me? And I looked at him and I said, I've never seen a grown man cry like that. And he was like, Iyanna. And I was like, I'm sorry, but like, you was really boo-hooing over this woman. And I was like, is this you, bro? Is this you? And he's like, no, it's not like that. I was like, okay. But the issue again isn't that he chose me second. It's that he treated me as if I were second. And even in life, he did. Second to himself, second to his friends, second to anything, really. And that was the issue.
What was that about? Because we saw a little bit of that, but we didn't get a full explanation. Him going out, but you're at home, this kind of thing. We didn't get a full explanation. The show kind of showed it. Didn't really dive deep into it. I felt really, I did feel a little bit bad. I was like, you know, you two are on two different worlds. So, he's outgoing, you're ingoing. Yeah.
So I'll be honest
you
about
chew that
too.
chip as well, girl. Come on.
So I'll be honest about that as well. The show was filmed literally right after quarantine. And this is when I was in my full-blown introvert mode. Like, I didn't want to leave the house. I had gotten so used to being in the house, and it was so overstimulating for me to leave the house. So I will say that's not actually me. I like to go out. I like to dance, which is why once I started getting the groove, like, I did start going. And I probably started going out a little bit more than him once he started slowing down. It was like it was a normal amount. Okay, I don't overindulge, but nonetheless, like, this was right during quarantine, really. And I hated leaving the house. And that's why he kept excusing his behavior of like going out so much. He was like, well, it's just because of quarantine. And like, I haven't been cooped up in the house. I'm an extrovert. And I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of get that. Like, I get that. So that's why the whole going out thing, but that wasn't a real issue. The real issue with him is the overindulgence and him coming home at like obscene, ridiculous times of the day. Like, it's like, why is the sun out and you're just not getting here? I don't understand. Yeah, so that was a real issue. Yeah. But
wait, I realized
I'm not that introverted.
Oh,
I'm
that's
really
fair.
not that introverted.
Yeah. I realized I jumped at one because I didn't let you. Well, I let you finish, but I didn't ask a follow-up question because I kind of downplayed it. When you said he came to your house at 5 a.m. to convince you, baby, I just need to know. I mean, because that's a tense time, right? It's tense because obviously you're about to make a choice, make a decision. you know, I would love to know your thoughts and your feelings. So 5 a.m. he comes to the door, you see him.
Yeah.
What's going on? What's happening at that moment in time? Because, like you said, you are at that point going to say no. So, what going with the 5 a.m.? What's happening there?
Well, because he was out. He was out that day. And quite honestly, I didn't understand the club scene. I don't like clubs. They are ridiculously overstimulating for me. And so I didn't know what entailed like being a club promoter and stuff like that. So he was telling me like he was working, and my dumb ass believed him. And I was like, oh, working? I was like, this late? He's like, yeah, we have to like do, and he started listing off tasks. And I was like, okay, sure. And I was like, but Jarette, like, I don't understand. Like, and he just kept over explaining. And then eventually I was like, okay, well, I think I believe you. And I was like, you know what? All right, I'm going to take a chance. Sure. Why the fuck would I do that? But anyways.
Yeah, no, I know. That's what we're here for. Why would you want to?
Look, why? I don't know. I'm still figuring it out, okay?
Huh? That's what we want to know, baby.
Traumatized kid, don't know how to trust her own intuition. It's just like, man, lessons learned. When I tell you, like, lessons learned. I will never repeat those mistakes again. That's one thing about me, though. Once I learn, like, I'm like, all right, I'm done. I don't need to get beat up by life again.
No, that's very fair. I mean, okay, so on my end, obviously, like, you know, how I often talk to people is, you know, as much as we talk about the show and everything like that, we do like to talk about, to understand where you're coming from, because, you know, I can talk about the show all day long, but we only see what we see. So, like you said, you don't necessarily trust your intuition. What's behind that for you then? So, like, is that like from a childhood situation? Is that, you know, how you grew up, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I do get weary about talking about my childhood trauma because I think people typically weaponize it against me. But I have gone through quite a few. So growing up, I also grew up like, and this is also part of the trauma bond, but I also grew up like Jarette, where it was like a very strict household, except we responded in very different ways. But it was a very, very strict household, and I wasn't allowed to make my own choices. She made all the choices for me, down to like what I wore and where I went, of course, because I was a teenager. But it was like times 10, times 10, and I didn't really get to live out my own choices or figure things out until I got to college, and I went buck wild for 2 years, and then after that I started to settle down. And that's why I also empathize with Jarette, because I understood where he was. What I should have taken into account is that he was 32 at the time, and that he had plenty of time to adjust and to take responsibility for his own trauma and healing. But whatever, that's neither here nor there. I just like, yeah, so I think I never really learned to completely trust my intuition, and